So when I was younger, I would say, what grade was that? I don't even remember what grade I was in. But I remember being in my room at the time. I stayed at 215 Virginia Drive in Warner Robins, Georgia. Real young. And one day I hear my mom and my stepdad arguing. So as I'm listening to them argue, I'm really not thinking too much of it. They're just having an argument. So one day, while that's happening, my mom gets all my stepdad's clothes and throws them in the hallway. Now the way the house is set up, it's like you walk in. It's got a front door in the. It's like a patio type area, but you can walk in, and that's basically where like the living room was. There's like a walk-in space to the living room. It's one big giant space, and then the other door. There's another door a few feet away from that, and that's like the dining room or the second living room area, if you want to call it that. So like you got the front door that goes straight to the back door in the backyard. So this is just one little area. Then you got the dining room, and then you got the hallway. Now the hallway connects all three of the bedrooms together. So you got my room was next to my mom, well, literally just across from my mom's room. So my mom and stepdad stayed in that room. I was in the room across from them, and my older brother, when he lived there, he lived in the other room because across from his room was a bathroom, and it's all in the same hallway. So my mom's arguing, and stepdad throws all his clothes in the hallway. I don't know if she cheated on him, whatever happened, it happened. So she get gasoline, pour all the gasoline on his clothes, light them motherfuckers on fire. Now, I remember standing there thinking, wow, there's a fire. She just lit a fire in the house. That's interesting. And they're sitting there still arguing. I go in my room, just do whatever. I'm literally not even thinking about the fire. I'm not even thinking about it. I'm going in my room doing whatever. And at a certain point, the fire gets a little bit bigger, and I'm just sitting there watching it. Now, keep in mind, this fire actually is blocking me from coming out my room, too. So, my mom, because like I said, like if the door is, let me see if I can do it on the camera. If the door is here from my room, let's do it this way. If my door is here, my mom's door is here, and the hallway is right here. The clothes are in the middle to where I could get trapped in the room if this fire got big. Well, as I'm watching this fire burn, my mom eventually gets, I guess she just snaps out of what she did and snatches me and was like, boy, you don't need to be watching that. Pulls me out of the house, literally just yanks me past the fire, and we end up leaving. I don't even remember where we went at the time. We left. Well, hours later, we go back to the house, and that shit had burned down. Like, it was burning up, I should say. It ain't burning down. It was burning up. You can see the fire, all the smoke coming out of the building, out of the house. And I remember my mom came back. I guess she thought that my stepdad was going to put the fire out when she burned his clothes, and he didn't. He just left. I don't even know if he broke out the back window or what, but he just let them motherfuckers burn. And I remember going back to the house. I think I even remember the car. She had like an orange Volvo. It was one of the real old ones that's all metal, no plastic and shit. So like, we get back to the house, and I'm looking at the house burn, and I start thinking about some of the stuff I had in there. Right. So like, she tells me, man, sit in the, she said, boy, sit in the car. So she goes inside, and at this time, I don't even remember if what's my brother? Yeah, my brother was born at the time, so he had to be a baby, so he might have been in the car too. So of course I go the fuck in anyway, and everything's smoking. Like, I'm looking, I'm literally like, heat rises, smoke rises, so I'm literally like a baby. I'm not a baby. I'm probably like 7, maybe 8, something like that, 6, 7, 8. And I'm walking around, and I can see the smoke above me. And I go in the kitchen, because here's the front room, then there's the kitchen, then there's that hallway with the bedrooms. I go in there in the hallway, my mom's sitting there trying to fight the fire. She's just sitting there trying to fight the fire. And I'm just sitting there looking at it like, dang, all of my stuff. All of my stuff is in here. All of my pictures, all of my awards, all of my movies, like literally everything that I can name that I loved, everything that gave me peace. All of this shit's in here. How am I gonna get this shit out? Right. So eventually, while she's trying to fight this fire or whatever, she turns around and she sees me standing there. She said, "Well, I thought I told you to get in the car. Stay in the car." So I end up walking back into the car, and eventually we go back to the car. She just left that shit alone. And she was like, "Now don't tell nobody how this shit happened and all this other shit." My mom. "Don't tell nobody how this shit happened and blah, blah, blah. If they ask you anything, say this." I still remember that as a child. And we ended up leaving, of course. At some point, the ambulance came, put the fire out. And we went back to the house to see what condition it was in. Well, we went back, and I started thinking about all my video games that I would play, because I kind of stayed to myself. Like, of course, I got big ass family. My cousin would want me to leave and go play with them and do shit, but I just want to stay in the house and play video games and watch The Jungle Book and watch Aladdin and watch Bambi and watch all the Disney cartoons. That's all I would do, just sit in the house and watch cartoons and shit and play video games. And I had a lot of awards at the time. I remember I had a lot of awards at the time because when we would do field day in elementary school, I would participate in the events, of course, and I would win the motherfuckers with who I was with my partner and shit. So all them shits was gone. It was all burnt up. All the movies that I would watch, I remember going in the second part of the living room trying to recover some of my movies that I used to watch, and all of them shit was that melted. All the VHS had melted and shit. Yeah, man, I literally had to start over. The reason why, unless somebody took pictures of me when I was a child, the reason why there are no baby pictures of me is because they burnt up in that fire. So at that point, I know that fire fucked me up psychologically. I know it did. Because it affected the way that I hold on to things and the way that I let go of things, like trying to balance that shit out. Because as I told Kaja last night, that fire let me know that it doesn't matter how hard you work, how hard I work for something, there's always the possibility of it being stripped away. As a child, I learned that as a child. So like, I started to basically try to gain sentimental value in things. Like instead of trying to work hard for this or work hard for that, I would still be the best child I could be, try to be Mr. Good Two Shoes and shit. But after that fire, it just let me know it. At any point in time, your shit could just be gone. Like, you can protect shit as much as you want to, you can hold on to shit as much as you want to, but at any point in time, that shit can always be gone. And that's what that fire taught me. Like, I remember having to rebuild after that and having to move from house to house. Because my mom she still worked as a mechanic and a nurse. And at this point, she didn't have a stepdad anymore for that extra big giant income. So it was just me and my mom and my brother. We ended up having to move with my aunt for a few days, and we lived with my grandma for a certain amount of time, and I did not like that shit at all. Lived with my grandma. I remember we lived in the place. It's called the Bubble or Old Town. It's Orchard Park in Warner Robins. Is one of the. It's gentrified now, but back then it was kind of rough. But yeah, I remember starting over, like at like 9 or 10, basically starting my whole life over, everything that I worked for and achieved, and all of my favorite stuff. Like it just didn't. The things that I loved didn't mean as much to me anymore because I wasn't able to enjoy them as much as I want because I'd be thinking about all that shit I used to enjoy. So like, I'm used to having to start over or start from ground zero. I'm used to it because I done did it so many times. Like us moving from place to place is literally like starting over every time. Starting over. Finally got to Orchard Park. Finally got video games again, and that's when I started enjoying life a little bit more. I get to play some video games again. I ain't got to sit here and worry about school or children. I get to sit at the house and be by myself, not bother anybody. I think that's one of the reasons why my mom kind of liked me as a child, because I didn't require too much. I wasn't this this child that needed a whole lot of attention and shit. But like I remember after we stayed in Orchard Park, we ended up going back to the house that had burnt down, and people had broke into it and shattered the back window and just vandalized the house and shit. And I was just like, damn, man. I remember having these thoughts as a child, like, damn, this shit sucks. You know, ain't nobody's ever gonna see a baby picture of me. I would see other people's lives and be like, dang, they ain't have to go through none of what I went through. You know, look at this shit. They still got all their memories. They still got all their thoughts. You know, they still get to hold on to this stuff. So it made me like not care as much about certain things. I'm still trying to figure it out to this day. You know, I'm still trying to figure it out. Like coming here to Puerto Rico with just a backpack and a suitcase, it's like nothing to me because I know what it's like to have to start from nothing over and over and over and over and over again. I can tell you how many times I done moved. I used to damn near argue with my mom about going to the same school because we had to move so much and we'd be in a different school zone. But my brother ended up having to change school one time. But like, and I talked about this before on video on my other phone, but the microphone was messed up, so all that detail and all that shit is lost. But I'm doing it again because it's something that needs to be talked about. So like, what else do I want to add to that? So yeah, there's one photo album that my mom kept from the fire, and it still has singes on it and smoke spots and shit like that. And it's the only photo album that I have of me being younger. Like, you ain't never gonna, not me, not you, not anybody else in life, unless they took pictures of me or I was in it, them shits don't even exist. Like, my whole past, that shit don't even exist no more, you know? I can't even hold on to it if I wanted to. So like, I just know that shit affected me. I think it got me to the point to where I held on to too much because I was so afraid of losing what I had worked for and losing, just not having it anymore, not being able to enjoy the memory of it anymore. So it's kind of like life just kind of forced me to learn how to let go of things. You know, it didn't teach me how to value things because you can't value shit that just disappears. Ain't nothing to value. But like, that shit really affected me. And now I'm in a state to where, like I said earlier, I was thinking about smoking, and I was like thinking about why I started smoking and drinking and all this other stuff. And I realized that the one thing that makes me feel the most comfortable is emotional security. That's the one thing that makes me feel the most comfortable. However, in the spot that I'm in, the thing that would make me feel the most comfortable now is just the financial security. That's just it. Because everything else I got everything else I want. I got everything else I need. It's just that one thing now. So that's all I need to focus on. That's all I have to focus on, which is good. Because I ain't got to focus on a bunch of shit and put my attention everywhere. As a matter of fact, I even remember making a video and saying, like, the whole purpose we do anything is because we insecure about something. The only reason you're growing food is because you're insecure about what you're going to eat the next day or whatever. The only reason you eat healthy is because you're insecure about what'll happen if you be sick. It's just we doing all this shit to fill in insecurities and shit. But yeah, I'm just at the stage now where I want to get back to where I was financially, but not necessarily the same situation, because I literally don't need as much finance as I did then. I don't even need nowhere near. I just have it'd be too much. I'd just be wasting it on whatever. Like, I would literally just have it. I ain't gonna say it's too much. I would just be saving it and that's it. If I was in a similar situation. But the whole time I had finance, I would want to get to the point that I'm at now. The whole time that I was working the job I was working, making all the money I was making, is because I wanted to get to the point to where I am now. When it comes to growing food, when it comes to knowing what I know, networking as much as I have, like, I'm at that point. And the finance is just the last step. It's just the last step now. For me to be fully secure as I want to be. Now, I've said before that the security doesn't necessarily come from material possessions, but that's not always true. It's not always the case. It's like not having to worry about things is what makes us feel so comfortable in general. Like not just not having the concerns, you know, not being concerned with something's right or wrong, not being concerned about whether you're gonna have something or whether you're not. That's just it. And that's when we start having the healthiest patterns, when there's no worries. But when there's worries, there's always unhealthy patterns. It always comes with it. You know? But I think, like I said, being here in Puerto Rico, it literally highlights that trauma that happened when I was a child, of my house being burned down. And I'm aware, because I've met other people who's been through the same thing. House burned down. That woman Jessica I was telling you about, with her own business, there was a point where her house burned down. She had 4 children, and her house burned down. So all that shit was gone. So yeah, and I remember feeling for her, and I was like, dang, what is she gonna do with no house and 4 children? How in the fuck is she gonna come back from this? And she made it. Got her own business, make 100 and something thousand, 180,000 a year. Like she fucking made it. I remember her crying about it. I remember that shit. You know, and you know, her home was I think she was a cancer too, if I recall correctly. Could be wrong, but I'm thinking she was cancer. But that emotional security, her emotional security came from her home. She said, I remember her telling me that it doesn't matter how many times she moves, even if she moves to a bigger house, she always cry about it. Because that's her form of security. It ain't the money. The money always gonna come. It's just she need to have that home environment. You know, I think part of my journey is trying to find out what makes me feel the most secure about myself and about my life. What makes me feel the best? Because the security is kind of the most important thing. If you got your security and your foundation go hand in hand. The emotional security, physical security, whatever, they go hand in hand. It's like that's what's been on my mind. And I think I needed to make a video about it to just put it out there and keep that memory up so I don't have to keep thinking about talking about it. But I know that shit fucked me up. I know that all my shit being burned down in the house fire, I know that shit fucked me up psychologically. Because I went from a point of literally having everything, being a student with the best grades, doing the best job I could in life, all of that shit. And it didn't matter that I was doing my best and working hard. Shit gone. Shit gone. I felt like I didn't deserve that type of outcome for how good of a child I was being, you know, coming from the Christian paradigm and doing right by God and all this other stuff. And it was just like, dang, it doesn't even matter if I'm being a good person or not. If this is the case, you know, I wasn't thinking about stuff being replaced and transformed. Because it took years for us to finally get back on our feet. It took years. Like, that happened when I was a child. My mom and the rest, my mom, we didn't get back on our feet until we moved to where my brother lives now. So that was from me being a child to 2006. So let's see. 5th grade, I would have been 10. I was younger than that. Maybe about 3rd grade. So from 8. So it took like 10 years. It took like 10 years for us to finally get back to where we needed to be. You know, just to be manageable. It took 10 years. Even when we lived in the house in Greenwood, it wasn't too great then. It was alright. But like, thinking about how long it took to recover from all of that shit, it just lets me know that if it took us that long to recover from the fire, and the house being burned down, then it would take me a long time to recover from the feelings of that shit. You know? I know I got to a point to where I didn't think about it as much anymore, but I just needed to analyze like what it did to me and why I don't value certain things. Plus, I had kept going through this pattern. Like once that fire shit happened, that was a pattern. Like I didn't realize that was gonna be a pattern in my life. Like no matter how hard I worked, no matter how good I did, there was gonna be something that happened that just took that shit away from me. So when it come to me being motivated and inspired in life to do certain things, at a certain point, I will only like, I ain't gonna say half-ass it, I would say put about 75% in it, because that possibility of it being gone will always come.
Does that go back to the subconscious mind where we tell ourselves something like that, so therefore it just happens?
In it, wait, elaborate on what you mean.
So like, if you told yourself, okay, I can work hard for this stuff, I can have all this stuff, but some way it's gonna be taken away from me because of what happened with the fire, right? You told yourself that, and we know the power of the subconscious mind. Did you just feed yourself that program so it played out?
In a sense, there's one thing. There's. It's like this. I can say all day that there's no gravity. That shit always gonna motherfucking exist. Mm-hmm. See, when it comes to the subconscious and reality in general, you still got laws. Like laws of nature. Like shit that's just going to fucking happen. There's nothing you can do about it. And that fire burning pattern is just a law at this point. It was a law back then. Like I said, I had to notice that it didn't matter how hard I worked. The shit, something would just happen. It would just randomly happen. So it started making me question, like, should I even fucking do anything? Because if I do something, I'm going to put a bunch of energy into it, and then this shit's going to happen. But if I do nothing, and I'm not putting energy into it, then nothing happens. So what does it matter if I'm doing something or not? What does it matter? It's just for the experience at a certain point, because it ain't so I can have it long term. Like, I told myself many times that I wanted to experience things. I said it in one of the previous videos. I'm like, I want to experience something long term. Like, other than just seeing a child grow up, I need to want to experience something long term. Like 10, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, something to watch something grow long term, instead of having to let that shit go and not being able to fully enjoy it and be bittersweet about it. And that feeling is annoying, especially to go through it for years. And maybe I went through it for years because I had to bring attention to that pattern so I can not keep following that same pattern, because the pattern was already happening regardless of me saying it or not. It's something I just had to notice. Like, even when it comes to the women I wanted, it would always be when it was the least convenient. Like, when I had all my conveniences, the women wouldn't be around. They wouldn't even, the people that I wanted to be with, the relationships I wanted, they wouldn't even be there. But then once all that shit was gone, now all of a sudden they pop up. And I'm like, damn, why this person couldn't be here a year ago or 2 years ago or a month ago or 3 months? Like, why they had to come when I didn't have the shit that I normally would have? And that became a pattern. I kept noticing it. And I'm just like, damn, bro, can't win for losing. Shit. You know, damn if I do, damn if I don't. But I think me making this video is kind of bringing attention to that pattern, because it needs to shift in direction. Like, I need to shift that, because I can't keep going through it. It's emotionally exhausting. It's tiring to be a passionate person and to put my passion into anything and everything, and then the results are just the results. It even happened here in the tropics with the tribe and all of that. So it is what it is. You know? It even happened here. It's just literally just the same pattern. It's just that after the fact type shit, which is annoying. You know, I don't think it would be healthy for me to be hesitant to create or start any engagement with this thought of, man, this shit probably just gonna fail anyway. Yeah. That ain't healthy for me, because then I won't be able to put all of my energy and effort into it. You know? then I won't be able to put all my energy and effort into it. But yeah, that's what's been on my mind, and it's been heavy on my mind lately. That's why I've been saying to myself, I just want to walk around with at least $1,000 in my pocket, no matter where I go for the rest of my life. I just want to have that. I could be like, somebody could be like, hey man, you got such and such amount of dollars, and I'd have that 1,000 in my pocket and be like, no, I ain't got no money, man. That's just my foundation. I gotta have that much. So that's my goal. Even though in my opinion, it's a small goal, that's what I want to experience. That'd be my minimum, you know. But like, yeah, man, this self-reflecting stuff is quite interesting. Because it's me being accountable. And keep in mind, I didn't do nothing to get my house burned down. I didn't do shit about that. That's totally out of my hands. I literally just had to observe it and go through it and then see what happens after that. But I know it affected me. I don't even know me coming to the tropics would even be possible. Me even leaving where I left. Me leaving the States. I don't even know if it would be possible if I didn't go through that when I was younger. If I didn't go through starting from nothing. You know? I think that shit just kind of made it easier. It made it easier for me to detach, and it made it easier for me to not put my emotional investments into certain things. It simplified it. That's where I've been at. Amen. That's what I got to say about that. Peace and love.